down. In the interview with the Night King actor, he drops a few interesting pieces of information. The first is that the Night King has a specific target, and we will find out who that is. I believe this is Bran, and this video was originally just going to be about the reasons I think that is the case. For me, in the way I think about the story, his first statement would have been enough for me to say he's after Bran, but his second statement makes that even clearer in my opinion. When asked what the Night King wants, he said somebody made him the Night King. Nobody knows who he was before, a soldier or part of nobility. He never wanted to be the Night King. I think he wants revenge. Everybody in the story has two sides, a bad side and a good side. The Night King only has one side, a bad side. So we know the children of the forest made him the Night King, as much as we can know anything in this story because Bran watched that happen through the weirwoods. In that scene we can see that he's tied up and appears to be having this done to him against his will. The lore tells us that the children were doing this because they were losing a war with the First Men. They created what we now refer to as the White Walkers to give them an advantage in this conflict. That means that the White Walkers were created to defeat humanity. And we know they did this because the First Men were moving into their forests and more importantly cutting down the weirwood trees. From what we know though, this didn't work out as planned and eventually their creation led Westeros into the Long Night. We will get to learn a lot more about this when the prequel series comes out, but ultimately the children and the First Men had to join together in order to beat back this invention which threatened to destroy everyone. Now of course they are back, the White Walkers that is, and they have been moving south for the first time in a long time. And last season, they finally made it through the wall, and now we know that humanity is going to have to face them at Winterfell. As far as the story goes, it's important to remember why they were created and what they do. They kill humans. They also kill everything else, which wasn't exactly what the children had in mind, but the fact that the actor told us he wants revenge and has a target doesn't change that. The reason why I think he's after Bran and why there aren't even any other likely candidates is based on a few things. First, despite being very effective at killing people and adding them to their army of the dead, I think the show has made it clear that they aren't mindless in this endeavor. There are several examples where we see what looks like strategic moves from the Night King. Despite how we feel about the events of the trip beyond the wall to capture the White in Season 7, it seems plainly obvious that the plan was for the Night King to capture a dragon that he could use to get through the wall. He devised a plan and followed through with it, which to me makes him a much greater threat. Not to go on and on about this episode, considering it's one of my least favorite episodes, but two other takeaways here are that one, Jon shows us again that he is a great warrior, but he makes bad decisions in the heat of the battle. Just like in the Battle of the Bastards, he would have lost here, he would have died here if someone didn't swoop in to save him. In this case, the reanimated Uncle Benjen. And then also, the Night King had every opportunity to kill him here, just like he did in Hardhome, and decided against it. Or at least he made it clear that that wasn't his priority. So that leads me to believe it's probably not Jon, and the revenge aspect of it doesn't really make sense with Jon either. So what is the revenge part about? Well, that is the second thing that I would say is the reason why it has to be Bran, and that is his position as the Three-Eyed Raven. Now, the Children of the Forest created the Night King, and he has at least killed most of the children that we've seen in the actual series so far. I don't think it's definitive one way or another on the show if there are still children living, but I don't think it's likely that the Night King is targeting someone or something that hasn't been established as a major character. The nerd in me is holding out hope for more children, Order of the Green Men, Isle of Faces type stuff, but I don't think that is directly related to the Battle of Winterfell. The show's first Three-Eyed Raven has also been taken out, and that's how Bran got to where he is. The important part here is that the first Three-Eyed Raven was considered the last Greenseer by the children, and he was very important. I tend to lean to the idea, at least in the book, that he was pulling the strings in a lot of events that led up to where we're at. I made a video about the direwolves and how he might have played a hand in that a couple years ago. But either way, we saw that they protected him with their magic, and he was searching for Bran. Now, I don't want to go really deep into the textual clues about this stuff because I've made videos about that a few years ago now, and I don't want this video to be super long. Keep in mind, though, that the last Three-Eyed Raven came to Bran in his dreams as a child. He most likely did this with other kids, several of them, and there's at least pretty good evidence that he probably visited Euron as a child in the books as well, and that Euron didn't make the grade. Euron in the books is basically a different character compared to the one in the show, though, so it's not really important that it was him. What is important is that Bran is special, and very powerful. You could definitely say that Bran is the most powerful character in the story, at least in his skin changing, or we'll say warging because that's what they call it on the show, and his green seeing abilities. Of course, he's crippled, he can't walk, so it's not like he can defeat the Night King in single combat, but his powers essentially make him the only person that can help the side of the living actually defeat the army of the dead. In my opinion, this is where his story's always been headed, and it's led to a lot of theories about Bran that kind of go way out into left field, which I don't subscribe to. And I've made a video about that in the past too, about why I don't think he's the Night King. And it basically boils down to that I don't think that this has been all leading up to this sci-fi time travel twist. It would be really a big surprise, and that's not to say it can't happen, it just doesn't seem like that's where the series has been headed. So we know the children made the Night King. We know that the children protected the original Three-Eyed Raven, and that the Three-Eyed Raven came to Bran. The children and the original Three-Eyed Raven both basically sacrificed themselves to make sure that Bran lived, which also is a pretty big indicator of how important he is. So I don't really think there's any chance that he has a target that is someone other than Bran. Now, where another layer came into this was, like I said, when I saw the runtimes, if everything's leading up to this battle, the War for the Dawn, and Bran is the key to actually defeating the Night King, and that happens in episode 3, what's going to happen after the fact? You know, I titled this The Real Battle because I think the real battle does come down to Bran and the Night King. But then what is going to happen after the fact? Now, there's got to be a twist. I've said that in my last video. You know, there has to be some sort of a twist here. And that's what I'm interested in talking about and finding out what you guys think going forward after this video. Does this mean that they won't actually win at Winterfell? But if that's the case, then what happens? Do they beat the Night King back temporarily and he's still there and there has to be another showdown later on? Do they lose straight up and then what? Like, it's really kind of hard to figure out where it goes from there, especially because, you know, we know that the dead are a big threat. So what I was thinking about was related to this idea. Bran is powerful. He is the most powerful character in the realm of magic, at least right now. Obviously, there's other magical people that have strong power, but Bran seems to be the linchpin in this battle.